I just want to give you the opportunity. Is there anybody you'd like to apologize to right now yourself?
No. Do you understand me? And I'm going to sue you if I have to. Do you understand me?
I've been saying for years, keep the oil, keep the oil.
Today, we are diving deep into one of the most polarizing figures in modern history, Donald J. Trump. Love him or hate him, Trump has undeniably left a lasting impact on the political landscape. But what exactly are the controversies that have made him a figure of intense loathing for millions? Stay tuned as we explore the scandals, statements, and actions that have fueled the animosity.
Interview that you're doing. You're sort of being my psychiatrist. You're all fired. All four are fired.
Towards the 45th President of the United States. The Apprentice and the Birth of a Brand. Before we delve into the political controversies, let's take a step back to understand the man behind the headlines. Donald Trump first entered the public eye not as a politician, but as a real estate mogul and a reality TV star. His show, The Apprentice, catapulted him to a new level of fame, portraying him as a decisive, no-nonsense business leader. This image helped him cultivate a massive following, but also laid the groundwork for his polarizing persona.
So, Dennis, you lost.
Of course.
For many, Trump's brash style and catchphrase, "You're fired," were entertaining, but for others, it was a display of arrogance and ruthlessness. The birther controversy.
Terrible mistake by pursuing this.
One of the earliest and most notorious controversies surrounding Trump was his role in the birther movement. In the years leading up to his presidential run, Trump became a leading voice in questioning the legitimacy of Barack Obama's birthplace. He repeatedly demanded to see Obama's birth certificate, insinuating that the first African-American president was not born in the United States. This racially charged conspiracy theory was widely debunked, but it succeeded in sowing doubt among a segment of the population and stoked the flames of division. Critics saw this as
raised this, saying the president should release
this.
You raised
as
a question. No, I did not raise this.
as an overtly racist attack, which significantly contributed to the hatred towards Trump. The campaign trail and the Mexicans' comment. Trump's 2016 presidential campaign was marked by a series of inflammatory statements, but none were more controversial than his comments about Mexican immigrants. During his campaign announcement speech, Trump stated, "When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists." These remarks sparked outrage.
Mexico sends its people. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists.
Should be able to speak like that of a nation.
And were condemned as racist and xenophobic. They set the tone for a campaign that would be riddled with controversies, further polarizing the American public.
Try to talk you out of saying we should temporarily ban Muslims.
The Muslim ban. Another major controversy was Trump's executive order that temporarily banned entry into the United States for citizens from several predominantly Muslim countries. The order, which was quickly dubbed the Muslim ban, faced immediate backlash and legal challenges. Critics argued that it was discriminatory and un-American, targeting people based on their religion. The policy ignited protests across the country and drew condemnation from human rights organizations and world leaders. For many, this was a clear example of Trump's divisive and prejudiced policies.
In
Charlottesville and very fine people. In August 2017, a white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, turned deadly when a counter-protester was killed. In the aftermath, Trump held a press conference where he infamously stated that there were very fine people on both sides. This remark was widely interpreted as an equivocation between white supremacists and those protesting against them. It led to widespread outrage and condemnation from both sides of the political spectrum. Many saw this as an unforgivable moment, showcasing Trump's inability or unwillingness to unequivocally denounce racism and hatred. Trump's presidency was marked by not one, but two impeachment trials. The first, in 2019, centered around allegations that Trump had pressured Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden and his son, Hunter, in exchange for military aid. The House of Representatives impeached him for abuse of power and obstruction of Congress, but he was acquitted by the Senate. The second impeachment, following the January 6 Capitol riot, charged Trump with incitement of insurrection. Again, the House impeached him, but he was acquitted by the Senate. These impeachment trials were deeply divisive, with critics arguing that they showcased Trump's disregard for the rule of law and democratic norms. One of the most significant and dramatic controversies of Trump's presidency was the January 6 Capitol riot. On that day, a mob of Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol in an attempt to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. In the weeks leading up to the attack, Trump had repeatedly claimed that the election was stolen from him due to widespread voter fraud, despite lacking evidence. During a rally on January 6, he urged his supporters to fight like hell. The ensuing violence resulted in deaths, injuries, and a shaken nation. Trump's role in inciting the riot led to his second impeachment and further cemented the intense hatred many feel towards him. Trump's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic is another major point of contention. Critics argue that his administration's response was slow, disorganized, and at times, dismissive of scientific advice. Trump's public downplaying of the virus, promotion of unproven treatments, and mixed messaging on mask-wearing and social distancing were seen as contributing factors to the high death toll in the United States. His infamous suggestion to inject disinfectant as a treatment was met with widespread ridicule and concern. For many, Trump's approach to the pandemic highlighted a lack of empathy and leadership during a time of crisis. The Trump administration's zero-tolerance immigration policy led to the separation of thousands of migrant children from their parents at the U.S.-Mexico border. Images and reports of children being held in detention centers under harsh conditions sparked a national outcry. The policy was widely condemned as inhumane and cruel, drawing criticism from human rights organizations, religious groups, and politicians from both parties. The trauma inflicted on these children and their families remains a dark chapter of Trump's presidency, and it significantly contributed to the animosity towards him. Trump's approach to foreign policy was marked by a series of controversial decisions and statements. His admiration for authoritarian leaders like Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un, coupled with his often combative stance towards traditional allies, raised eyebrows and concerns globally. Trump's withdrawal from international agreements, such as the Paris Climate Accord and the Iran nuclear deal, were seen as undermining global cooperation and stability. His erratic and unpredictable foreign policy moves left many feeling that he was jeopardizing America's standing in the world, adding to the disdain for his leadership. Trump's relationship with the media was contentious from the start. He frequently referred to the press as the enemy of the people and labeled unfavorable coverage as fake news. His relentless attacks on journalists and news organizations were seen as attempts to undermine the free press and erode public trust in the media. These actions were condemned by journalists, media watchdogs, and free speech advocates. For those who value a free and independent press, Trump's hostility towards the media was another reason for their intense dislike. Trump's environmental policies, or lack thereof, were another source of controversy. His administration rolled back numerous environmental regulations, opened up public lands to oil and gas drilling, and withdrew from the Paris Climate Accord. Critics argue that these actions have had detrimental effects on the environment and hindered efforts to combat climate change. Trump's apparent disregard for environmental issues alienated many who view climate change as one of the most pressing challenges of our time. Throughout his presidency, Trump's rhetoric and behavior often sparked outrage. His use of Twitter to insult and attack opponents, his inflammatory and sometimes offensive remarks, and his tendency to spread misinformation all contributed to the perception of him as a divisive and presidential figure. From mocking a disabled reporter to making lewd comments about women on the infamous Access Hollywood tape, Trump's conduct was frequently criticized as unbecoming of the office of the president.